Hi, everybody. Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. We talk all the time about what's out there in the digital world. It's loud and crowded. There's half truths, full truths, everything like that. But you need professionals like the folks at Oak City Tech to help you find your future customers and also be able to connect with your current clients to strengthen that relationship. So if you go to oakcitytech.com, tell them what you're looking for. I know they'll be able to help. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Banning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. And if you're not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, each week, about 32 chapters now, and almost 520 members get together. And our job is to help each other grow our businesses. And our guest this week is Mark Armstrong, who owns Wow One Day Painting. And some of you may know Mark. He used to be the sports anchor at ABC 11 for 16 years, but he left there and he now owns his own painting franchise. And Mark will be with us in just a minute. Talked to him this morning. Oh, look, he's coming right now. Mark was on a job estimate this morning, and you know how those go sometimes, but he is joining us here. Uh, I guess he can pull over. Yep. So, anyways, Mark, if you watch local news, you would have seen him lead the sports team on on ABC 11 here for the last 16 years. Got a big sports background, but I want to find out how in the world you go from a sports background to owning your own painting company. Mark, good morning. How are you?
Morning. I'm great, Mike. Hope you are too. Enjoying the sunshine.
All right.
That's an excellent question, though.
I
I'm
well,
not. I'm not. Go ahead.
so glad to have you, and thank you for practicing safe Zoom by pulling over. So,
Let me
your
get my seatbelt off.
yep, your walkthrough went well this morning?
Well, we'll see. We
Huh?
will have the estimate to him later today, and hopefully, it's another job we can land. We're excited to be. Things are going well so far. Um, so we're just going to keep the ball rolling as best we can. But it's another young family that's expecting their firstborn, so they're trying to get their house ready for that. So that's a fun project to try and be a part of.
Oh, good. You and I can get to that too because we've been there before. But before we get to all that, Mark's background is very sports oriented, and we'll get to all that. But I guess first couple questions for you, Mark. The second question is why Wow One Day Painting? But the first question is, did you have a bubbling entrepreneur thought over all these years, and how did that come about?
I would say honestly, no. I was perfectly happy in my sports broadcasting career for many years. It was exactly the job I grew up wanting to have. And then when I got the job down here in Raleigh, it quickly became apparent to me that even though I didn't know anything about the area except for the teams I'd be covering when I first moved down here, it quickly became home. And I got married shortly after moving here. I had my girlfriend from Baltimore, my previous stop, became my wife and moved down and joined me. And we eventually started a family. And so, yeah, I was happy as a clam. And then, just in the last couple years, the nature of the job started to change a little bit. I had some not so great leadership at the station. Um, and then COVID hit, and I'm one of the countless people for whom COVID really was something where you were just constantly recalibrating your life in your head and what was important to you and when what you wanted to change about your life going forward. So I had been looking for a while, kind of without any intent about what could potentially be next for me, and was trying to think of like sports adjacent things naturally, since that's what my entire adult professional life revolved around. But then really started looking with intention last fall and landed on Wow. And I don't know if you want me to answer that question too as part of this long spiel, but the reason I ended up with Wow is I've got a childhood friend up in Toronto where I grew up who is a franchise owner himself. And I'd kind of been following him on Facebook, and he's 7 years down the road in it now. So way, way farther down the path than I am. But I just had watched him growing his business and seeing the success he was having. So I reached out to him and asked him if he had an hour to FaceTime with me on a Sunday and just tell me a little bit about it. And he started off just by singing the praises of the company, how totally invested they are with the training and with the corporate support system in ensuring that they do everything possible they can for you to succeed. There's obviously, ultimately it's up to you. But he just couldn't say enough good things. So that got me really intrigued, and I started going down the discovery path with the franchise development people. And there wasn't any point where I said, "No, I think this is wrong." There were points where I was like, "I don't know anything about this business," but they did not discourage me. They said, "That's actually the way we like it, because then we can just train you in the way that we have proven works in this business." So, yeah, it's been an adventure. We're just a few months in now, but so far so good.
I always like when an athlete is interviewed and they always talk about their college career and say, if you hadn't gone to that school, where would you have gone? So if you did not have this friend of yours with wow, what was next on the list?
I didn't have a next on the list per se. I knew the one thing I knew. I didn't even know for sure that I wanted to get into a franchise or whatever. This just kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, fell into my lap by nature of that friendship I had. I knew I didn't want to do any kind of like food service type stuff. But beyond that, I was really open to anything. So, I explored, through some of the relationships I'd built from my job at ABC 11 with some companies in the area to see if there was potentially a fit there. And then I don't know, there was something, even though I've never thought of myself as an entrepreneurial person prior to what I'm doing now, there was a lot to say about becoming my own boss. And that was part of my decision making process, was being in charge, setting my own hours, um, and being, where the input that I put into the company directly correlates to what I get out of it. Um,
And with
so that was
you know,
all very appealing to me. Yeah.
and with 3 kids now, is this the first normal life you've had, as a dad where you kinda get to have dinner with the family?
No, no, I don't want to say. So I don't know if you can still see me here.
Your
My wife
video
was trying
did
to
go
call me
off.
on my.
Yep.
Okay, let me get that back for you here. First of all,
Big.
there
Eh,
we. Okay. So yeah, no, I don't want to overstate. It was a weird schedule. I was working as a sports broadcaster where I wouldn't go in until 2:30 in the afternoon. Barring some press conference or something else happening. I mean, some days were vastly different than that, but a normal day I'd go in at 2:30, do the 6 o'clock sportscast, drive home, have dinner with my family, put my kids to bed, which I always really greatly
oh,
valued. And it's very important to me to be able to do that. And then drive back to the station to do the 10 and 11 o'clock sportscasts. Now, again, there were many days when I was on the scene at PNC Arena or the Smith Center or Reynolds Coliseum or any of those places to cover a live sporting event, and maybe I wasn't home for dinner that night. But it really wasn't terrible on my family, my previous job. That would be mischaracterizing it, but definitely being away from my wife at night
mm,
every weeknight. And I wouldn't get up in time to see my kids off to school or be able to pick them up at the bus stop, which I've been able to do a lot now. So there are definite improvements or additions to the time I get to spend with my wife and my kids right now, which was one of the big appeals as
yeah.
well.
Yep, and that's the beauty of, small business ownership. I always call it stressful freedom because it's each of those every day. Do your boys go to school decked out in wow one day painting gear?
No, they don't do that. I do dress them up in University of Utah running Utes gear, since that's where I went to school. So they are being indoctrinated on that front. But I haven't. It's been a weird thing because they never got to be old enough where I think they never kind of vocalized to me, that they thought it was super cool I was on TV or anything. That's
Yeah,
just what they knew I did. Um, so now that I'm out of it, I don't really know what they think of what I'm doing now. I
yeah,
mean, they know what I'm doing now, but I don't know how much thought they put into how much different dad's life is now than it was before. I know they appreciate seeing me around in the afternoon when I would have been gone otherwise at my previous job. And yeah, all that time is just time. I mean, I've got two 11-year-old twin boys and a 6-year-old boy.
yep.
So I don't need to tell any parent that may watch this how fleeting that time is where they are growing up. And it seems sometimes like it's taken forever, and then other times it's gone in the blink of an eye. So any extra time I can get to be with them and spend valuable time with them. I was at Y Guides with my youngest this past weekend for a full Saturday fall outing, which was awesome. So that stuff is just so important to me.
Do we see a little league coach Mark in the future?
I have helped out coaching their soccer team. We're a soccer family more than baseball. Um, but the schedule was a little daunting for practice. I didn't know that I could for certain make myself available every time for practice. So I just kind of help out when I can. But I try to watch when I am available. I definitely go and watch their practices and stuff like that. We just finished our season now, so we're in a break until the spring. But yeah, that's a big part of dad life too, is watching my boys play soccer. That's one of the most fun things I do and look forward to.
Now, with you being Canadian, can we assume that your boys can ice skate yet?
They can. They can. They're not experts, and I am far from an expert ice skater myself because I never actually played organized hockey growing up. I played street hockey just about every day of my young life, but I never played organized, so I never became a great skater. And then I went years and years and years without doing any skating for a while. So getting back up, I got to play in the Hurricanes alumni game a couple years ago, and my main goal was just not to embarrass myself. And I'm not even sure I accomplished that, but I quickly got over. I didn't have any ego attached to how I did, so I didn't mind if I was going to fall down or I swung and missed on a puck too that I should have had a nice shot at. Um, but yeah, I was too busy having fun to be
Yeah.
embarrassed.
How'd your body feel the next morning?
It felt all right. It felt all right. Yeah, it wasn't excruciating. The fun part of it, obviously, aside from just being out there with a whole bunch of former Hurricanes and just watching even guys who are, like my age, almost 50, and they're still gliding. Or I mean, it's just a
Mhm.
completely different thing when you watch a person who's been a pro at a sport and watch them stick handle and watch them skate. So that was so fun being out there. And my coach was the former Hurricanes defenseman Jay Harrison, and he just kept whispering in my ear every time I'd come back to the bench, "We need more out of you, Armstrong. We need more out of you." And I'm like, Jay, I'm giving you all I've got, I think, buddy. I'm sorry to say.
We talk about a lot of times, which sport has the best athletes, and there's an argument to make for a lot of them. But for those of us who don't skate at all, uh, the hockey players don't get the credit for what they do on skates, forward or backwards. They get hammered into a wall, right? They get, you know, dinged with a puck or a stick at least 10 or 12 times a game. And I always like joking with and soccer players are the worst, first of all. I'm a big fan of Tottenham in the Premier League, but soccer players are the worst because we all know the story of these hockey players that would get a finger sewn back on during intermission to come back out. And these soccer players are laying on the ground like they got shot because I ran by them and they fell down.
Right.
But hockey players are, that's a different kind of tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I mean, my personal in terms of the athletes I've covered and interacted with, wrestlers are the most insane, and maybe rugby players I'd put in that same basket. And
Yeah.
then and the next tier down, you're talking the likes of hockey. And then the weird thing with hockey is that it's such a rough and tumble sport, for all the reasons you just outlined. But because it's not a running, jumping sport that is so hard on your joints, a lot of these guys are able to play for a lot longer than, say, basketball and
Mm.
certainly football players are able to play. Just because I mean, if you know how to skate, you're doing a whole lot of just gliding around rather than jarring your joints constantly. But yeah, they're a different kind of animal. Those guys.
And that's an intense 2 minute stretch on the ice, too, isn't it?
Yeah, if that, and 2 minutes is a long
Yeah.
shift.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
you're going you're going out there and you're emptying your, especially if you play for Rod Brindamore, you better be emptying your gas tank for
Mm.
the 45 seconds to 60 seconds you're out there on the ice. Otherwise, you're going to have a coach to have to answer to when you get back. But yeah, you get to gasping pretty quickly.
Yep, that was a good hire for the Hurricanes. We are talking with Mark Armstrong, owner of Wow One Day Painting Raleigh. Mark's relatively new to this, but he's enjoying the transition in life. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. We talk all the time, folks. You don't own your digital fingerprint. Facebook could cut you off, YouTube could cut you off, Twitter could cut you off, all that stuff. But you need to control things like an email list to keep in touch with your future clients, current clients, and past clients, and you control that. So be smart with opportunities like that. The folks at oakcitytech.com will help you. Just tell them what you're looking for, and I know they'll be able to help you reach your goals. All right, Mark, give us some tips on painting. If we own a house, we're coming up in the winter time with the stuff you're learning and what you know. What are some things we can think about to figure out? Hey, do we need to call you?
That's that. I'm glad you said it. You're learning because I am very much steeped in just learning every day now because I didn't know anything. I mean, we had months of training, but it's not really about the dynamics and technology of paint per se. There's some of that, but you're more just learning how to estimate and customer interactions and all those kinds of things. So in terms of the technology of paint, I am not very, versed to the level where I feel comfortable talking about that with any degree of knowledge or certainty right now. I know the basics of it, but yeah, I mean, if you're just looking, a lot of what we do when we go into people who have been living in a house for a while and the house is just settled a little bit, and so you're starting to see the cracking in the ceiling or some cracking in the walls, and those are very easy situations for us to come in and fix. Or if somebody who's moved into a house and they just have the contractor grade paint on the wall, and whether it's color related or quality related, we can come in and upgrade and give the house the look that a new homeowner wants. Or if you're looking to sell your house, we can come in and spruce it up so that it looks nice for the people walking through. Whatever your need is, I've got a very, very good team. And that is what gives me the confidence when I'm going out and doing estimates, is that I know everything I'm telling the people about what we can deliver, and my guys will come in behind me and deliver exactly that. So there's all manner of motivations for why people call and have estimates with me. And then whatever that is, then we can figure out what best suits their needs, and we come in and get that done for them on a timeline that is often unexpected. So we just surprised a guy just this morning by coming out on a whim, or not on a whim, but he saw us doing another job on the same street and said, "Hey, I've got 6 shutters. Can you paint them?" Like, I can't get anybody else to answer the phone. I'm like, "Yeah, we can paint them. I'll have my guy do it tomorrow, and we'll put them back up on your house on Monday." So that's what we did, and he was very excited about that.
I'm amazed at how many stories like that I hear from a, a homeowner or a potential or a client. They just nobody they can't get a phone call back, and I just don't get that.
Yeah, well, and that's at the core. I mean, we're not unique in that regard, but that is at the core of essentially the WoW franchise model, is just taking the professionalism and the customer service to a whole new level. That, first of all, when you call WoW one day to get an estimate, we've got a call center that answers the phone. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, they said the phone calls are answered on average within 3 to 6 seconds. So you're not even leaving a voicemail. You're not sitting on hold. You're not doing anything. You're getting a live person on the phone, takes down all your information, what it is you're looking to do, what the specifics of your project, where you live. And then that's routed to all the local franchise owners like myself. And then I say that they pick a time when they want me to come out there, and I show up uh, at the time that you booked the estimate. There's no mystery about, well, let's see if this guy shows up. Yeah, I'm absolutely going to show up at the time that's booked. And then if you go ahead and everything seems great after the estimate, then my team shows up at the time and the day we say we're going to be there, and we finish the job in the timeline that we say we're going to finish the job. And I wish I could say that wasn't differentiating with a lot of other contractors, and I'm not going to speak bad about any of them, but I just know anecdotally from so many of our customers what a nightmare the process was prior to connecting with us.
No, I can do that for you. There are some really bad ones out there, so we'll just leave it at that. I'll take the heat off of you. One of the things though about wow, the phrase that you have used with us before is speed plus quality. Normally, the word speed is not part of somebody's marketing campaign. Why does that work with you guys?
Well, it's just one of our core tenets is that we bring larger crews to your house too, so that we are getting more work done in a shorter time frame. It's all about lessening the because painting is obviously a kind of I don't want to say messy, that's not the right word, but when you have painters coming in to completely change the interior of your house, that's a very intimate thing to do, to have people into your home. And then the nature of the job is to have drop cloths everywhere and paint, and it's a disruption to your life. So our whole model is about minimizing the disruption, whatever the job may be. And a lot of the jobs we do, I mean, obviously it's in our name, Wow One Day Painting. A lot of the jobs we do are literally, we are showing up at 8 a.m. and by 5 o'clock, the project is done and we're out of your house and you've got a whole new look in the areas that you wanted changed. But then we have multi-day projects too. But instead of having your house taken over by painters for 2 weeks, we can be in and out in three
Yeah.
to 4 days. And you get your house back with the improvements that you're excited to see. And it's an exciting thing. It's such an elemental change to your house too, is changing the color, and it gives your house a whole new feel. So that's certainly one of the edifying things of this job, is seeing the homeowner at the end of the project, and seeing the happiness on their face and kind of the excitement that their house has a whole new look. And we've been able to give that to them in a time frame that was a lot quicker than they certainly expected in many cases.
When is it too at what temperature is it too cold to paint?
Yeah, we don't want to be painting exteriors below. I think if you look at a lot of the paints, it's like 60 degrees, low 60s. As soon as you get lower than that, for an extended period of time, then the basic qualities of the paint are not going to express themselves as well, and all the adhesion, and because the primary role of paint on the exterior of your house is to protect the surface of the house.
Mm.
Now, obviously, you're picking colors too, so it cosmetically changes the look of your house, but that's part of the process, is prepping the surface and making sure that the paint is able to do all of the protective things that it's designed to do on the outside of your house too. So you don't have a paint job that lasts 3 years. You've got a paint job that lasts hopefully 7 years before you start seeing any kind of differences where you might want to look at it again.
Can we assume, since you are Canadian, that you are fluent in French?
I'm not fluent. If you drop me off in Paris, I would not go hungry, but I would certainly not blend in either. And do not ask me to live translate a French language movie, because I
Nope.
would be of little to no assistance at doing that. But yeah, I could spit out kind of truncated sentences to fulfill my basic needs as a human being. Can ask to go to the bathroom. I can ask for food. What else? I can find a hotel, put my head down at
Eh,
night. Yeah, like all
since
that stuff.
yeah.
All that stuff I can handle.
Since you've been in the triangle, how often have you had to use any French?
I haven't had to ever use any French. I have used it just for fun, or where, like, a circumstance where it seemed appropriate, but there's never been a situation where I had to use French. Um, I've joked with a couple hockey players that have, on the Hurricanes. Aaron Ward, who I became pretty good friends with, a former Canes defenseman, is fluent in French, and was always very proud of the fact that he could do media interviews in French as well. So he
Ooh.
was a popular guy for the French language media when they would come into town. So I would try every now and then to talk with him, just to keep my base level of French still active in my head, because I probably don't need to tell you, your brain starts to crust over, and some of the stuff you thought you knew has calcified, and you can't tap into it like you used to. So that's the primary way I've tried to keep, like, I just want to keep the basic ability to, to say some French phrasing and stuff like that. And my kids, of course, are all learning Spanish now, which is a much more useful language to
Yeah.
have here than French. But I don't know. I really like languages. I just find it endlessly interesting to me.
Do you walk past many French conversations in this town?
I couldn't tell you the last time. Probably would have been maybe a time at the airport or
Yeah,
something, right?
yeah.
But no, I can't remember ever. First of all, I don't do a whole lot of walking around in crowds. I kind of have my, once you get to my age, you've got your little sphere of
Mm.
where you go in your day to day life. So No, I would say probably at an airport was the last time. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
But I do pride myself on like trying to be able to accurately recognize accents, like telling the difference between a South African accent from an Australian accent, or a Welsh accent from an English accent, and all that. That stuff I find really fun
Oh, yeah.
for whatever reason.
Yeah,
That's the nerdy part of me.
there you go. I love the Northern Ireland accent, that's my favorite. I just love that
Yeah,
one. I
yeah.
don't know why, but I do. So when you were dating May, did you try to impress her, like ordering French one day at a restaurant, something like that?
No, I don't think I ever did that. But I tell you what I did do is, because my wife is Filipina, so I got the Rosetta Stone for Tagalog, the native language of the Philippines. This was after, I think we were married by the time I did this, but I joked with, because we would go visit her family, and they all live in the East Bay area out in California. And, they're all talking in Tagalog, and it's a really fun language to just listen to. Um, but I decided, and I joked with her mother, I said, I'm going to learn just enough Tagalog that you guys can't talk badly about me right in front of my face, because I'll be on to you. I'll know a few key words that I'll know you're talking about me, and you're going to have to feel guilty about it. You're not going to just have free reign, which they all thought was funny. So I became like a trained monkey for them. When I would show up in California for our visit, they're like, Mark, say this. And I would say, some clunky Tagalog sentence. And they're like, you sound like a robot. And then they'd all break down laughing, laughing, laughing. But yeah, I kind of hit a wall with that stuff too, because um, the sentence structure is so completely different than English. I was having a hard time. Like, I could spit out just words, but I
Mm.
couldn't form them into coherent sentences, because that stuff didn't come naturally to me.
Now
But
when she gets
yeah,
on the phone with her family members, do they break out into that language, or is it all English?
yeah. Well, Tagalog is fun. I mean, they speak when she's talking with her mother and her sister and stuff. A lot of the time, they're speaking Tagalog, but it breaks. Tagalog has like some stuff that doesn't translate, where there's not a Tagalog word, where they'll just
Yeah.
seamlessly weave in English words
Mm.
to it. So that's one of the interesting parts. One quick funny story: when we were first dating, and the Tagalog word for yes is "oo," like just two O's. "Oo." So she would be talking with her mother on the phone, or her sister, and just kind of say, "Oh, oh." I'm like, "What's going wrong? How is constantly things are going wrong? Oh, oh." And then she finally told me, "No, that's the word for yes." Because I was like, how are they constantly putting out fires in California? Or there's always something going on that they're all worried about. No, they're just saying yes. It was a normal conversation. And I don't know why it took me so long to finally ask her about that, but it took me probably a month and a half of listening to her say, oh, constantly on the phone.
One of my favorite questions doing this show for a while, for married folks on the show, is how did you and May meet? And do you both tell the story the same way?
Yes, I think we would tell the same story. Her recollection of me, where we differ, is well, I'll break it down. We both worked for the same company in Baltimore, Sinclair Broadcasting, and I was the sportscaster there on the first floor. We both worked at the corporate headquarters, and the first floor was the broadcast area. She worked in the advertising and marketing department, which was on the second floor. And there was really never a reason why somebody who worked on the first floor would have to go to the second floor, and vice versa. So I guess they recognized that or something like that. So in the interest of, spurring a little bit more, people getting to know each other within the company, they would host these summertime backyard themed socials. So it was just, I think it was May of 2004. And I was just out on the back patio with my buddies from the sports department, and I saw May across the patio. And I was like, oh, who's that? I haven't seen her before. And I happened to be talking to her boss, Joe, who would come down. He was one of the rare people that would kind of move between floors, and he would come down and like to just talk sports with us. So he said, that's May. She's one of my employees. He's like, would you like to meet her? And I was like, absolutely, I would. So he went and got her and brought her over, and so I introduced myself. And the next day I called her on her extension, and I said, hey, it's Mark. We met yesterday. and she said, "What do you want?" She had no recollection of me. Her She had no recollection whatsoever, so it wasn't love at first sight. But she was in a job that took a lot of phone calls, so she just thought I was another person calling for work.
Yeah.
And then I explained, no, we met yesterday. I was hoping I could maybe take you out to lunch. And she said, call me back at 4:45, and I'll let you know. So, and that at that point in my head, I was like, well, she's either coming up with an excuse why she can't, or doesn't want to go with me, or she's doing a quick background check on me. And it turned out she was doing the latter, and her friends encouraged her to give me a chance. So I ended up getting that lunch. But that I had to cross that first bridge where she said, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
And I thought long and hard about pulling the ripcord at that point, and jumping out of the plane. But I stayed the course, thankfully, and my life is richer for it.
And I don't know if she would have been prepared for that real snarky answer of, 3 kids and a white picket fence.
Yeah, yeah, not at that point. Not at that. And then her mother tried to break it. Her mother didn't trust me any farther than she could throw me at first. And then when I relocated from Baltimore down to North Carolina to take the job at ABC 11, her mother really thought I shouldn't be trusted in a or long distance relationship rather. But thankfully, May did not listen. And now her mother loves, if we're ever May and I disagreeing, her mother will always take my side. So I have long ago won her over as somebody suitable for her daughter.
My dad's mom did that with my mom. He said what she would say, "Whatever Jack did, I'm sure he was wrong, so I side with you, Patty." Which is nice to have, right?
Yeah, it is. It's good to have that in your back pocket.
And you if I were and I do professional stalking before show just so I can get some good talking points. You're just a little bit taller than May based on some of your Facebook pictures, right?
Yeah, yeah. She's about 5 foot nothing,
Yep.
and I'm 6'2". Yeah, I always joke with her. If you basically, s- taped two Mays together, you'd get me, like weight and height, essentially. One of my favorite photos of May is I used to MC a golf tournament they would hold down at Pinehurst, and every year they would have a keynote speaker. And one year the keynote speaker was, well, it was Jay Billis a couple times, but one year the keynote speaker was Eric Montross, the former UNC
Oh,
great, and he's a UNC broadcaster now. But anybody who knows Eric Montross, he's like 7'1", I think, maybe 7'2". So I've got a great picture of May standing next to Eric Montross, and they don't even look like they're, the same species, essentially.
kinda like that picture of Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve at second base during the playoffs a couple years ago.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yes, I
Uh,
know the one you're talking about. Yeah,
yep.
very much like that. Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, our chapter, Mark's in RD18, meets Thursday at noon, which is a chapter I'm in, and we're certainly glad to have him. We had a gathering since we're still meeting on Zoom. We had a little gathering, and you and I think that's the first time. I think that's we met in person. That's the first time, right? And so
Yeah.
we got
Hmm.
into a conversation with Lawrence and Anu, a couple other people in our chapter about you guys travel. Well, and at least with May's background being Filipino, you guys traveled. Lawrence and Anu had traveled a bunch overseas. And we got into the subject of haggling. And you
Hmm.
told a story of basically May was undercutting a guy. And I'm going to let you tell that story if you remember the one we were talking about. And more importantly, your initial reaction when she threw out her price.
Yeah, yeah. So
This
we
is
took our honeymoon over to Asia, actually. So we went to China and Hong Kong and the Philippines and Thailand. It was an amazing trip. So a lot of this kind of haggling happened on that trip too. But the story you're talking about was actually in San Francisco's Chinatown, and we're just wandering around like tourists do, and wandered into like a little jewelry store, and my wife liked the necklace. I don't remember the exact specifics of the necklace. I remember it had maybe a pearl on it or something to that effect. But anyway, I do remember like it was yesterday that the list price on it was $128 in the case, and my wife decided she liked that necklace, and so she walked up to the person behind the counter and said, "I'll give you $10." And I about doubled over because I can't haggle to save my life. But I was I wasn't embarrassed, but I just felt so uncomfortable. I'm like, oh my gosh, 10. how do you say $10 to an item that's priced at 130? But she's like, I know what I'm doing. And I had to walk away because I felt so awkward about the whole thing. And I think she ended up, I may be incorrect on this, but I know it wasn't, maybe I'm wrong by $5 either way, but she ended up getting that supposedly $128 necklace, I think for about 18 bucks. So, but I could never, I mean, I would have ended up paying, if May told me she liked that and then put me in charge of the haggling for it, I'm sure I would have probably ended up paying more than the sticker price. But that was incredible to watch. And when we were in Asia, we would walk, to the stalls, and I would walk ahead so as not to, look like a big dumb sucker. And May would handle all the bargaining if we saw items that we either of us wanted to get.
Yeah, you kinda stood out on that trip, didn't you?
Yeah, and that was yes, yeah, absolutely. That's part of the fun of, so much of the world has become so homogenized now, culturally, like with the same, the chain restaurants and all that kind of stuff. It was really great to be somewhere where you're like, I am nowhere close to home. Like this is a completely different part of the world culturally, and in terms of the people that are populating it. I had such a great time. I can't wait to go back.
Does May use that haggling skill on you to negotiate things in and around the house or time off, vacation, stuff like that?
No, she doesn't have to haggle with me. She just tells me what to do. There's no back and forth necessary. I I know what's good for me. I know how good at being married to her. So if she, needs something from me, I'll do everything in my power to take care of it because the happy wife, happy life, and that
Yep.
is exceptionally the case. I tell her to this day I don't know how she was single when I first met her, but I'm glad she
Mm.
was.
I do like your, Halloween picture of the deer in the headlights. That
Hmm.
was well done.
We did that this year. Yeah, we did that this year. That was her idea too. And then a couple years ago, we did. I know another popular couple's costume. Like we weren't original or anything, but we made it. I think pretty funny. Is we did a somebody who's an unfiltered Snapchat
Mm,
photo, and then versus the filters that you can put on. So I
yep.
was the unfiltered, you know, big oaf with a woman's long hair, and we wore this. I went and bought a my size shirt of the same shirt with totally dressed alike, but she was all made up and all that kind of thing. So that a lot of people got a kick out of that one too. Beauty
Alright.
and the Beast.
Yep. I'll give you a tip for next year. Sonny and Cher, only you play Cher and she plays Sonny.
Okay, I'm game for anything, so I'll
Yep.
run that up the pole next year.
She's about as tall as he is, and you're about as tall as she is, so
Yeah,
it works out
that's
well.
right. That's right.
Was your wedding a mix of the 2 cultures?
No, we did a fairly straightforward wedding because we wanted to keep it fairly low key, and I just wanted to be able to pay for the wedding in cash that day. So I think my total wedding cost was like $13,000, which obviously, as far as weddings go, is a
Mm.
pretty uh, low dollar event. But we did around the wedding incorporated the Filipino culture a little bit, but the actual wedding itself and the reception was just very straightforward, standard North American stuff.
Good food at family gatherings?
Oh, amazing. No, and that's something that my wife does too. She's just an incredible. She's the talented person of the family. She can cook up an absolute storm, whatever kind of food, not just Filipino food, any kind of food, you name it. She knocks it out of the park. And then she has her own small business, May Designs NC. That's all home decorations, seasonal decorations. She's right in the middle of her busy season right now with a whole bunch of craft shows. She'll be at the Junior League show. She's coming up. She'll be at Briar Creek, I think, this weekend for a show they're having there. But she does booming business. Just she's incredibly creative, and she's the perfect combination of talent, creativity, and then also industriousness. Like she does not stop when she gets an idea, or if she has she just goes after it and somehow does all of that with her business, and then also is an incredible mother to our children and a pretty darn great wife to me too. So the total package.
And for people looking for, help at home with stuff like that, it's May, MAE, Designs NC, so check
Right.
that out. As I was doing some
Hmm.
research for you, there was an article that said when you got the job here in Raleigh, you fired your agent because you knew you would never take or want another TV job again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's kind of what I touched on back at the start of this conversation. Like, I thought, when you're working in TV, you just kind of get to be this vagabond where you
Mhm.
you go places 3 to 5 years, maybe even less, move on to the next, move on. And there's for a lot of people, there's this insatiable need to keep climbing and try to go to, say, in my case, it's a sports person. A lot of guys and girls want to go to ESPN. That's the ultimate, or they want to work in LA or New York City or something like that. And that just was never me. But when I got the opportunity to come down here and work at ABC 11, I thought, well, yeah, maybe I'll be here 3 to 5 years or whatever, and then something else will come up potentially. But then as soon as I got here, and the sports scene was just so amazing, and
Mhm.
the quality of life in the area is just so amazing that I was like, why would I want to go anywhere else? This is a destination job, and this is a job where you just stay for as long as they'll have you. Um, and so, yeah, once I made that realization fairly early on, I just called my agent. I said, "Hey, I'm not going to have any use for you anymore. I appreciate everything you've done for me, but let's just call this the end of the road." And she understood. She understood. I mean, we had to make some financial arrangements to part ways, but yeah, I mean, that's I had no desire. I was never somebody motivated by this need to go to ESPN or any of the big cities or anything like that. I just wanted quality of life and a cool sports scene, and this provided all of that.
And once you got this job, how long after that did May come down?
We got married in '05, so we were married almost a year to the day of me starting at ABC 11. So I brought her down, and we still live. And our plan was to live in an apartment for a while and save up some money to get a house. But then one of my coworkers at ABC 11, her mother was a realtor and showed me the house that we still live in to this day. And it's another situation where we got that house, and I carried her over the threshold, old fashioned style, and all that stuff when she came down after we got married. But we never thought that'd be the house that we'd be raising our kids in. And once again, we just kind of fell in love with the neighborhood and the people who
Mhm.
live there. And there's a lot of things about our house that we're not crazy about, but we just decided the neighborhood is too good to
Yeah,
leave. I mean, we can work on the house, but you never know who your neighbors are going to be if you move
yeah.
somewhere else. And we've got an amazing setup here, so why mess with what's working?
Yeah, I grew up here. We moved here in '73 to into neighborhood Fairfax Hills off of Falls, and it was a perfect neighborhood. There was 3 of everything. You could not be bored, you could not find something to do, rainy, snowy, sunny. It was perfect, and so I'm with you. You find the right neighborhood to kids, and they'll talk. Because here I am still talking about the neighborhood I grew up in. I'm sure your boys will do the same thing. I find that odd that you 2 had to save up for an apartment because we all know the UTV people are very well paid.
Wait, sorry, I've got. It wasn't saving up for the apartment. It was, we thought we'd live in the apartment in order to save money for a house. But yeah, no, I mean, I that was part of the challenge of deciding to do this, is that my job was, I wasn't going to lose my job at ABC 11, but I thought that I wasn't also at the same time going to be able to work another 12 years and retire at age 60 or something as a sports anchor. I didn't realistically think that was going to be in the cards with the way the business was going. So I had to just bite the bullet and walk away from what was a very well paying job with great benefits for a pretty amazing company to work for, Disney, especially if you've got kids. Like we could go to Disney for free. I mean, how are you going to
Wow.
beat that when you've got kids? So that all that to walk away from that, and the healthcare, all that stuff, that was the big, and not gonna lie, there were some nights where you know there were some tears, and as talking to my wife about this, but she's always has my back and believes in me, and so we're gonna make a go of this. We've got a very complicated life logistically right now, because then we also added a COVID. we also added a COVID puppy. So she's got her business. I'm getting this business going and running around like crazy. And then we've got a big puppy that only requires like 14 walks a day at home too. So I keep telling her, if we can get through the next 6 months, our
Yeah.
life will never be more complicated and we'll be able to handle everything. No problem.
He's just speaking it out just sounds like, 6 months. We know the 6 months will go by fast. We have no idea what's gonna happen during those
Yeah,
6 months, right? What
that's
is
right.
your
That's right.
best human interest story you covered once you got this job here?
It's an excellent question. And it's one of those things where I did so many stories and then you're asked for one and you can't, but I have one that I did way back when. I want to say I did it in like 2006 or something, but it was a kid and I'm forgetting his name now, which I'm a little bit embarrassed about, but um, he was a wrestler. He was blind, but he wrestled in high school and then went on and did some wrestling in college too. His story was what was so incredible. He had um, lived out in the country with his family, and his father kept a pet tiger. And this got actually quite a bit of publicity at the time. But at some point, the tiger got loose and mauled the boy, and that's how was blinded. He
Oh,
wasn't born blind.
jeez.
I mean, the result of this, yeah, it was the result of this terrible accident. Um, anyway, so in the fallout from all that, his mother ended up getting remarried. And so I did this story with him while he was in high school. So he's wrestling, which was obviously the sporting element of it. But we went to his house and he would go fishing and play catch with his stepdad. And like the stepdad had really just embraced this kid and the unique talents and challenges that came with him. And there was like one thing, the reason this is the first story that always pops to mind, he would let his the son drive a motorcycle. The blind was driving a motorcycle
Oh.
with the stepdad on the back, but he was steering it. On like the country road out where so we have video of this, and I mean it was just so incredible the life that the boy was leading. Um, Despite being blind. Like some of the things I still tell people, they're like, no, that can't have been true. I'm like,
Mm.
no, absolutely. We have video of it. So it ended up being like, I think it started with, because I was just so enthralled with this story. I think the first copy of it or the first edit of it was like 6.5 minutes long. And my station, so we don't have 6.5 minutes. So I had to get it down to, I think I maybe did it in two pieces of like two
Yeah.
minutes each or something. So the whole story was like 4 minutes, but that's the one that sticks with me. There's been countless others too, and it's always hard to recall specific ones, but that's the great joy of the job. In addition to covering so many amazing sporting events, is just meeting people and telling their stories. People that really, like Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams, they're nice guys and all that, but they don't need ABC 11's camera attention. I mean, but when you meet people for whom it really is truly a thrill that you're there to do a story about them, that's really rewarding.
Do people still call you for tickets to games around here because you still know people?
Yeah, no, I don't get a lot of that. And I never got a lot of that, honestly, because I made it clear to people that I don't. Yeah, a lot of people had the misconception that I'm given tickets to go
Yes.
to the games and that's how we cover them. But no, you actually have a media credential and you sit in you know, a designated media area. I don't have just a whole bunch of tickets at my disposal at ABC 11 that I hand out. So anyone that would have been predisposed to asking for that stuff, I let them know fairly early on that's not how it works. So
When in a previous life, I worked at Daytona International Speedway, and we would get the same questions. Hey, got anything on the front stretch about the start finish line? I'm like, for the 500, really?
eh,
A, the answer is no, and B, yeah, quit calling.
yeah,
Anyways, Mark
yeah,
Armstrong with
yeah.
Wow One Day Painting. If you need anything addressed with your house, please give them a call. We've been putting Mark's phone number up on the screen. What's the best website to reach you, Mark?
Wow1day.com, or you can call the 800 number, which what is the I think it might be 1-800 wow one day. But yeah, wow1day.com is the most direct way to go to the website. Just enter in your information. And if it's in my area, then I will be showing up at your door sometime in the next couple of days and walking through the project with you. And hopefully my team will follow behind me and take care of it. And we've got a whole bunch of very happy customers. I mean, our first day of production was August 9th, and so far we're about to finish our 50th job so far. So
Wow.
the business has been going well. There's a lot of, I mean, there's just, I mean, this was part of the appeal of it for me too, is just it's hard to screw this up in this area. I mean, the growth here
Yep.
is just so exponential, that if you're, the only way you can not be successful to a certain degree is if you're doing bad work. And we're not, I would not allow that to happen with my company.
Or if you
So
don't return their
we're
phone
creating a
call,
lot of,
right?
or if you don't even give yourself the chance to do the job. Yeah. So there's a lot of people, I understand there's a lot of contractors that are buried in work, and so they probably don't need more jobs, but that'll never be the case with us. You will always have somebody answering the phone. You always have us showing up on time for the estimate. And then if we book the project, we're there to do it for you as well.
And we recommend, well, actually, you don't encourage haggling with you for your business.
There's some of that inevitably that comes with some customers. And I tell them, listen, I am the franchise owner, so I do have some leeway in this regard, but there is very little leeway. Don't if I quote you, for example, $2,700, don't be like my wife and come back to me with $250, because that conversation is not going to go the way her conversation went.
You can agree to that and then just go out and paint 2 of their shutters and leave, right?
That's right. Yeah. You can do a pared down version of your job for that much money.
Get you 3 baseboards. That's what 250 will get you, right? Anyways, have enjoyed the conversation, Mark. Good luck in the transition from the corporate world to business ownership. And folks, if you need any help, any questions with anything to do with painting your house inside or outside, please give Mark a call, because they will take good care of you on that. And we will see everybody next time on Triangle BNI. Hang on, Mark, for a second, okay?
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.